Hi, and welcome to this presentation all about being a case manager in the behavioral health field. My name is Ali, and today we're going to be talking about the 10 principles of ethical case management. This is brought to you by Seeds of Genesis, which is an organization dedicated to creating safe communities for healing and also raising the standard for behavioral health treatment. I know that before I became a case manager, actually, I didn't start off as a case manager. I started off as a counselor with case management duties, and then I transitioned more into case management, but I've been exposed to all of it. But for years, I heard about the position of case manager. My mother was actually interested, and it was known as this kind of cool job where you were working with clients and you had to do paperwork and you had these responsibilities that just sounded different than other typical jobs. But at the time when I was younger, there were like educational barriers. So this is actually a really good career field to start to get into, to just if you're just graduating from college and not, and especially with the behavioral health or human services degree, it's a great way to see if you actually like being in the behavioral health field and if you like working with clients. It kind of gives you exposure to both the more technical and business sides and also working with clients. So let's just get started. So I'm Ali from Cali. I am a behavioral health content creator. I'm an advocate for higher standards of behavioral health treatment. My apologies. I am the host of the Voluntary Admission Podcast, which is an educational resource for people seeking behavioral health treatment, as well as a space for advocacy for demanding and spreading awareness about why we need to have higher standards of care. I also have a YouTube channel where I share educational videos about behavioral health treatment. I am very active on LinkedIn, spreading educational resources and awareness about the behavioral health field. And I'm also the creator of the Fire Facilitator Program, which is a program to teach group facilitators how to actually facilitate memorable and effective groups that will facilitate change in clients' lives. So when it comes to my mission and the mission of Seeds of Genesis, I pulled this quote directly from the Seeds of Genesis website. My mission is to improve behavioral health treatment for all and create safe communities for healing. Through Seeds of Genesis, I am providing resources for two kinds of peers: those who have been through hell and back and are seeking community, as well as behavioral health providers rejecting the complacency that providers are allowed to have in this field. A lot of y'all need to step it up. But it all goes back to us who have sought treatment or are seeking it. We deserve better treatment, better care. Amen. So what is a case manager? This is a working definition that I've come up with. Every time I ask what a case manager is, before I got into the behavioral health field, and when I hear people describe it even now, I don't think they do a good job. I was confused about what it was before I got into the field, and then when I hear people talking about it, I don't think it's an accurate representation, and I've been exposed to different treatment settings. So what is a case manager? In a behavioral health program, a case manager's role is to ensure all treatment requirements are met and that the patient receives necessary referrals to address biopsychosocial vulnerabilities. So let's talk about what are treatment requirements. Any necessary paperwork, forms, anything of that nature that need to be done in order for the patient to progress in treatment, that is the job of the case manager. Any outside legal requirements, it's not the job of the case manager to fully understand what those are. But if the client communicates that that is a factor in their treatment, it's the case manager's job to make sure that they coordinate with the right professionals and representatives to make sure that the program is doing their part to help the client be successful. So that's what a case manager is. What kind of settings are common for case managers to work in? So inpatient treatment / residential, that's where clients will live in a facility for 30 days. Usually not a hospital setting, although it could be. It's usually a community-based facility in the sense of it's a home that is actually a facility where mental health treatment occurs, like a residential house. Intensive outpatient and outpatient IOP, which is where the clients live at home or somewhere else and they just go to treatment a few hours a day or maybe a few hours per week. Partial hospitalization, that's where clients live in a shared home, but the treatment is not conducted in the home, it is conducted in an outside facility. So they may all get in a shuttle together in the home that they live in together and go to the facility a few hours per day. And also, community organizations have case managers. So it could be nonprofit organizations or just organizations that are in the community that are not necessarily behavioral health facilities, where they offer services that can help clients improve their lives. And there's case managers there. For example, housing resources that are kind of just in the referral network of behavioral health treatment, or maybe even community resources such as ones that provide peer support or other additional resources that clients could benefit from. They may have a case manager as well. Okay, let's talk about principle number 1. And as I'm going along this training, I broke it down this way to make it more immersive for you to understand what a case manager does. So instead of telling you, oh, they do X, Y, and Z, I wanted to talk about the principles so that you can envision yourself and start to see if this is something that you can do. And my goal also too is to bring in more qualified people into this field, not just more qualified. And by qualified, I mean, of course, there's certain education, credentials, certifications that you need to have, but that doesn't make you qualified. That just means you passed a test or you passed some classes. What makes you qualified is that, number 1, you actually care about quality treatment. And then number 2, you're professional. And number 3, I'm going to break down some of these skills. You have some skills that show that you know how to take ownership of work. And I'm going to explain what those skills are here. So principle number 1, documentation. Documentation is a very significant part of case management and treatment in general, but the case manager, documentation is so important because there are so many moving parts. There are deadlines, there are different pieces of paperwork, there are just all these things that need to be attended to. So the most important principle with documentation is that it needs to be accurate. It needs to reflect everything that occurred. It needs to reflect when it occurred, what exactly was addressed. So accuracy is extremely important with documentation. So documentation should be written very straightforward. It's not really a narrative essay. It needs to get straight to the point. Documentation also needs to be timely. There is a 24-hour rule in behavioral health treatment, but that should only really apply to group notes. When it comes to documentation with case management, it needs to be completed right away. There should never be a piling up of case management notes. So if you did a service, for example, you met with a client to call their insurance to verify their benefits, or you met with a client to help them set up an appointment with a psychiatrist. That documentation, first of all, you need to be taking notes during the service while it's being completed, what the client is saying, what exactly is happening, and any details that you need to take care of later. Taking notes while the service is occurring so that your note is easier to write. And then your note needs to be detailed. It needs to cover every single thing from top to bottom that occurred, as well as next steps. So this is principle number 1. Okay, principle number 2, coordination of care. Another huge aspect of the job of the case manager is to communicate with anyone that can help the client be successful in treatment, whether that's their legal representative or other providers such as a psychiatrist or an outside therapist. Maybe they have even an employment coach, something like that. Coordination of care is extremely important because it makes sure that multiple areas of the client's life are consistent with helping them reach their goal, and that everyone's on the same page, and that there's no miscommunication or lack of communication or people thinking one thing when it's really another. And of course, this is all with the consent of the client, so they have to consent to you coordinating with these individuals. But when it comes to coordination of care, the main key things are: number one, to take initiative. You shouldn't wait until a call is needed to then decide to make a call. For example, the client 3 weeks into treatment starts saying, "Oh, my PO needs you to call me," or needs you to call them, or, "Oh, my therapist is wondering how this program is set up." When you are first meeting with the client and when you're gathering all the information about them, that's when you figure out what kind of services are they already receiving, what kind of goals do they already have, and which providers are involved in all of those things. Do they have another case manager in a different program? You get all that information, and you need to start making calls like off the top, like that day or the second day, to start getting everyone involved who is necessary. So don't just randomly call their girlfriend or their mother-in-law, but everyone who is currently involved in helping them to reach their goals. Get them involved, and then you can get some information that could help you better support the client. And also, you may learn things that the client may have forgotten that you can help fill in that gap to help them be more successful in the program. Okay, the next principle in terms of coordination of care is consistency. So you need to follow up and don't wait for them to call you in order for you to provide some sort of update. Provide regular updates, whether it's every 2 weeks or once a week or once a month, depending on who it is. That could be very low. So just use your discretion with that, but provide regular updates and provide them without being asked, to the best of your ability, and making sure that you are documenting all follow-up attempts, any messages that you left, what did you say, any conversations that you had during follow-up, any new information that you received. That is super important. Also, you need to be following up with the patient every time you coordinate with other professionals in their ecosystem of, their goal setting and trying to get better. Follow up with the patient so that you build that trust with them and they know you're not doing anything behind their back. Always follow up and give them a brief overview of what was discussed. Usually it's going to be pretty simple and seemingly insignificant. Oh, just told them you've been attending your program and that you're currently working on trying to find a new doctor to address your back pain. Anything like that, and tell the client obviously what the provider had to say. And before you reach out to providers, the last point on here is be prepared. There is some basic information that you should already have prepared, but make sure their file is already pulled up so that the information that you don't know or haven't written down is there. So don't wait until you're already on the phone with them to go to log in into the EMR and find their file, and everything should be ready to go. If you're calling them for a specific reason, all documentation and facts need to be ready, and you need to review them before you make the call, and they need to be easily accessible while you're making the call to confirm details. Okay, principle number 3, insurance. Insurance can be a very tricky topic. I personally hope the whole insurance industry just goes away. I don't even know what insurance is, and it makes no sense. But unfortunately, this is a huge barrier for clients. It's super messy, but it is what it is. It's here now, and I'm not going to be the one to obliterate it. So we have to deal with it for the time being. But insurance is quite ridiculous. So when it comes to insurance, never make any promises or never promote wishful thinking or too much optimism with clients. It's always just tell them the facts. Don't say, well, most clients this, most clients that. What you can say is, this is the process that we go through, and when I have an update, I will update you. Here are some scenarios that it could be, but I don't have any details until I verified. And never make any promises, never get their hopes up about what insurance may cover, what their copay may or may not be, whether they have one or not. Just make sure to be transparent from the top about you need to verify. And yeah, that's just so important. And also make sure to collect all the information that you need from the client. Once you do this a few times, you'll remember, or not that you'll remember all the information. You'll start to remember certain things, but just come in with a list of things that you need: date of birth, their social security number, their employer, and any information that you need, who the policy is under, and always keep that information documented, obviously protected in whatever protective system your facility uses to protect confidential information, and PHI, which is protected health information. Make sure to collect everything from them. Collect more than you think you need without obviously invading privacy or doing what you're not supposed to do, but collect all the information before you call insurance or before you go to whoever the insurance coordinator is at your facility or who's responsible for that. Make sure to take detailed notes when you talk to either another team member about the insurance policy and what's going on with the insurance. Whenever you're on the phone with insurance, make sure to get the name of the agent that you spoke to, the time you spoke to them, and the day, because you're going to document every attempt that you take to get information. If they hang up on you, document that as well. If they transfer you to someone else, ask, who are you transferring me to and why? Document that. And when you get transferred, ask the person to confirm their name and title. Detail is super important with all of this. What time did they transfer you? More detail, the better, as long as you're not getting distracted, as long as the details make sense in creating a narrative. Because the biggest thing that's important with case managers and their notes throughout the course of treatment, from the minute that that client stepped in, from the minute that they left, there needs to be a very obvious narrative of what happened. Not a made up narrative, but one that is just, okay, this is what happened this day, this day, this day, so we can see what the journey was. Anyone looking back, an auditor, someone else, they should be able to understand exactly what the treatment journey was like on the case management side, at least. So also treat the patient with dignity and be respectful when it comes to insurance. You would think that this would be obvious, but if you've followed me for any length of time, if you've consumed my content, you know I have beef with this entire industry as a former client and as a provider now. Treat patients with dignity and respect, especially when it comes to insurance. It's a very touchy subject, because if my life is on the line, if I want to die, or if I'm using drugs, if I'm drinking myself to death, if I cannot stop harming myself with my food choices, if whatever I'm going through, I'm in crisis if I'm seeking treatment. I'm vulnerable if I'm seeking treatment. So this whole insurance thing makes me sick, because I even had a client one day, and I can remember his face and how sweet this guy was, and just such a kind person, hardworking individual, blue collar individual, just working his tail off. And when I saw his insurance card, I just knew it was going to be bad. I knew that he was not going to be able to do the program, although he was so open in the assessment. I just knew. So this is a very touchy subject. You need to treat patients with dignity and be respectful. I don't want to hear, there's so many ghetto case managers out here where they're like, your insurance doesn't cover it. Oh no, you have to pay $200 per session. Okay, I need to collect your money before you can move on. Like, how trashy. That's a disgusting way to speak to someone who is seeking treatment. So I need to make a whole video on this point alone. But when discussing insurance, make sure that, first of all, you are being kind and understanding, because if we're being honest, your insurance probably sucks too. And thank God you don't need treatment at the time. And would you want someone to speak to you disrespectfully and just be rude and insensitive about a very, very sensitive subject? So I'm just gonna leave that there. I'll have to make a whole another video about that, but just to introduce this topic to you. Principle number 4, calendar management. So I'm just shocked and bewildered at how many case managers don't have a calendar system, and you can tell. Digital is better, but have a calendar system. some sort of system where you document deadlines, appointments, reminders, that sort of thing. So make sure also too, when you're talking with clients, always provide a written reminder for all appointments. So don't just tell them over the phone. Email them if they're in person, give them a written paper with the email, or not with the email, with the appointment, and email them so that there is a track record and paper trail of appointment reminders. Also, in your case management notes, make sure to write appointments. So if you're meeting with your client and they need to meet with you this Friday or next week on Wednesday at 10 a.m., make sure that is written in the note. And even write in the note that you gave them in a written reminder, you provided them with a written reminder, and you also emailed them. And every time you make an attempt to remind them of their appointment, make sure to document that as well, the time, what was discussed, all of that. Also, one thing that a lot of case managers don't do, which is obvious, is they don't write deadlines on their calendar. If in 2 weeks a discharge is due, or if in 3 weeks the client needs to be reassessed for medication or whatever, write that on your calendar so that you can visually see what's coming up on the weeks ahead, and you're not just living life week to week or day to day. And make sure to use your calendar also with your coworkers. Do the same things with them that I told you to do with clients. You need to put coworkers on your calendar if they need to meet with you, or if you need to meet with them, you need to write down your discussion, follow up, email them so they're very easily accessible through email. Give them email reminders. After you set the appointment, send them a follow-up email saying, okay, and then send a confirmation email. Like, just stay consistent with your documentation and organize with your calendar. Okay, principle number 5, timeliness. Okay, number 1, it's their treatment and not yours. I understand you need a job. I understand that you're employed, but you're employed in human services. You're employed in behavioral health treatment. Okay, this is not about you. It's not about how stressed you are. You don't have to self-sacrifice and put yourself in harm's way to be present with clients, but you also need to know why you're there. If they didn't need treatment, you wouldn't even have a job. So you need to humble yourself. It's their treatment and not yours. You always prioritize them over whatever you need to do. So for example, first of all, most case managers don't even have a calendar. They don't have detailed note-taking systems. They don't have these systems that I am telling you entering this field or you trying to get better in this field to do. I'm giving you the game, right? And so they have these issues because they're not managing their responsibilities well, and they will put it on the client and make it their problem. I can't work with you today because of this. Now, you can have boundaries and, if something's unreasonable, of course, but a lot of times their excuse for not providing the highest quality of client care is because they got this, and this going on. And I know from behind the scenes that it's mismanagement of their time, mismanagement of their priorities, and that's a you problem, okay? So make sure you are prioritizing your tasks well, prioritizing the client always, and being consistent with following up, being consistent with everything you do. It just needs to be reinforced with the client when you're meeting with clients, whether you're reaching out to providers, your documentation, everything needs to be consistent. And with case management, I know sometimes you can have a crazy caseload. There could be rushes or there could be staff shortages, but case management is very systematic. It's not like the counseling portion of behavioral health treatment, where that's just different. But case management, the same deadlines occur, the same systems occur for every client. And of course, there's updates with agencies and facilities, but You can, if you create a system, you can be successful. The problem is you don't create a system. And I'm going to show a little bit of grace here. I know your employer didn't train you well and didn't teach you how to create systems. They just threw a caseload on you once you were trained. So that's why I'm giving you the game now. And so if I'm striking a nerve for you, then do better. Okay, let's go to the next one. Principle 6, collaboration. So collaboration is very important in behavioral health treatment. Our clients deserve everything. They deserve 360-degree care. They deserve consistency, follow-up, all of that. So just high quality care. So it's so important to follow up with coworkers. I'm sighing because I have worked in places where this was such a huge issue, but I never made it anyone else's problem why I didn't get the information. I don't care if you think I'm annoying. I don't care if you're going to gossip about me. My clients come first. And so if you, for some reason, are not responsible and you're not following up, say I asked you to call someone or whatever, and you never followed up, you need to follow up. Don't make it anyone else's responsibility to take care of your clients. You need to follow up, and you also need to communicate with your client throughout the whole case manager process, everything you do. So you need to, just how you follow up with them after coordinating care with outside providers, when you coordinate with your coworkers, you need to follow up with them. Ask for details. So don't just ask basic surface level questions. Ask how they presented. Ask any questions that you have about what that provider is saying, who works with you. Ask all the details. Don't just accept whatever they say. If they're very short with you because they don't know why you're asking so many questions, I would honestly send them motivational videos about different industries, because this is probably not a good industry for them. Ask for feedback. And what I mean by feedback is ask for ways to approach things better, or ask how to support a client better. Just ask others. Don't get caught up in your own world, and you may not take all advice, and some feedback may not be helpful, but a lot of it will be. It'll just give you a different perspective and make you a more well-rounded, competent provider. And very important, ask for help. Never have the excuse of, I didn't get this done, or I am so swamped, and you didn't ask for help. So getting swamped sometimes and having a large workload is normal in this industry, and especially as a case manager, but ask for help. Don't make the excuse that you're late on everything and that you're missing documentation because you just have too much. Ask for help. Okay, principle number 7, super duper important, is supervisor communication. Okay, this is why a lot of people in one of the last places I worked did not like me, because supervisor communication is super important. What is a supervisor there for? I don't want to be a supervisor for the most part, or in certain settings, like a manager, supervisor who's managing day-to-day operations, not really my thing. Never has been. I want to be with the clients, very present with them. I don't want to be managing staff. But always ask, and never make any assumptions, never make any guesses. Of course, you can use your best judgment, but if you have the opportunity to ask and they're available, ask. Even if you have downtime, or even just schedule meetings, which is the next point on here, with your supervisor. Continue to write a list of questions. Like every week, as you have a question that you can't get answered right away, ask them the next week. Like, not, of course, not anything that's not urgent. Say, hey, I just had some questions about this process. So you can get a full, well-rounded understanding and be able to be a better case manager and a better professional. Always ask for approval. Don't do things that you are not permitted to do, or things that may be a gray area. Just ask, because it may not be a gray area at all, and your supervisor may say, go for it, but always ask. Another super important key aspect is bring things to her attention. Again, client care is most important. So, I mean, if it has something to do with staff drama, that's up to you. But when it comes to things that affect clients, bring it to their attention. So you can try to work with people, but only try to work with them once. It's a losing game if you're obviously dealing with immature or unethical or just weird people. Your client's care comes first, and your sanity is important as well. If someone is doing something that is affecting the client and or it's affecting your ability to show up for your client because you're missing this, or you don't have that, or they didn't follow through with what they're supposed to do, bring it to your supervisor's attention. Because another excuse that I don't want to hear anyone who has watched this video make is that I couldn't do it because Sarah over here didn't do this, or I couldn't do it because, or this happened because Janelle did this. You need to bring things to your supervisor's attention. And if that's the case, you better have brought it up before things really go off the chain. I remember this lady, very immature lady, but she was in her 50s. The only reason I bring up her age is because you know better, because you're literally over half a century. She was gossiping and talking about me. Oh, you talk to the person before you bring it up to their supervisor, because there was a provider who kept rescheduling my client's appointments, and she fell through 3 weeks in a row, a therapist. And I did tell each time, I just talked to her, saying, hey, what's happened? Then I went to my supervisor, direct supervisor, and said, hey, and brought them all together, the whole treatment team. And I said, hey, how can we do this better? And I sent an email saying, this is my intention for the meeting. Before the meeting, I said, this is my intention for the meeting. Then the next week, something else happened. They still didn't do what they needed to do. So I had to escalate it because my supervisor didn't take a lot of initiative and was very passive. And no one's going to have a negative impact on my client's care under my watch. So you need to bring things to their attention. I'm not talking about being a tattletale and being a complainer. I'm talking about being ethical. And that's the ethical thing to do in these cases. Okay, let's talk about self-care. This can be a very demanding job. You could work with demanding clients. You could have a demanding workload. And so what I have listed here, although it seems simple, although it seems basic, I really need you to heed this wisdom, okay? This is important. So number one, take breaks. Never work through 3-4 hours not taking a break. That's not healthy. You need to practice what you preach. Another principle at Seeds of Genesis of being an ethical provider is practicing what you preach. You cannot have a case management session checking with the client and telling them to take breaks and have better self-care, and you're not doing it. So take breaks every 15 to 30 minutes. Stand up and stretch. Make sure you're drinking lots of water and you're not getting dehydrated because you're typing for 4 hours, running back and forth to the printer and making phone calls. You need to be drinking water and stretching. Taking walk breaks is very important. Not eating your lunch at your desk unless that's what you want to do, but some people actually do like to munch on lunch and work a little bit, but don't do that because you feel like you have to. First of all, it's illegal, at least I'm talking about the US. You need to take your lunch break, an uninterrupted lunch break. And some people just choose to stay at their desk, but go out and take a walk if you want to. So stay in your car and completely disconnect. Make sure you eat healthy. You're not eating junk. This actually does take a toll on your body and your mind. So make sure you are taking care of yourself. Also, talk about your stress. The thing that has helped me survive the most in this field, I'm very purpose-centered and passion-driven, and this is such a huge mission for me to be a support system for people. So that's actually kept me afloat the most, and having a connection to God, but also having peer support, or if you don't have peer support, just talking to your friends or your family or a therapist or mental health coach or your pastor, your community group about the stress about your job. Don't just hold it in and carry this chronic stress in your body. Also enjoy your life. Have a life outside of this job. Don't make your whole life being a case manager. This is just a piece of your life because you need to provide for yourself, and you also have the privilege of be able to support people in seeking treatment. So you can find purpose of it, but don't make it your whole life. Okay, principle number 9, building rapport with clients. So I need to talk a little bit slower on this slide. So make sure you explain all paperwork and milestones. talk slowly. So by milestones, I mean if they're progressing in treatment or if there is a piece of paperwork that they have to do because they've been in the program 2 weeks or whatever you're meeting with them for, and you need them to do something that your facility or an agency requires, you need to explain it in detail and you need to talk slowly. I don't want to hear none of this craziness. Okay, so this is the form for the JCO WC56. What? No. The next point on here is do not use acronyms or uncommon terms without explanation. Signing forms is already scary, and I hate the amount of forms that these facilities make clients sign. I think it's unethical because why are you having them sign a bunch of forms? Like, they need to only sign necessary forms because it seems like it's more to protect the facility rather than protecting the client, which the client comes first. Like, of course, protect yourself as well. I'm not saying that that's not important, but yeah, it gets out of control. But you need to explain things slowly. And going back to the point about insurance, treating clients with dignity that they, first of all, are not going to understand. You probably don't even understand half the paperwork. And so that's another reason to sit with your supervisor or sit with your program director or your program auditor, because you need to understand in order to be able to explain. And you need to explain slowly and get straight to the point. Don't give a bunch of technical explanations unless they ask, then you can get a little bit more technical, but do not use acronyms or uncommon terms with explanation. I don't want to hear DMC, ODS. I don't want to hear PHP, WYXYZ, like none of that. And don't use these terms without explanation. So if it's easier to say an acronym, or if it's a common acronym that is used in your facility, say it, but then explain what it means in very simple terms, and make sure you talk slowly. So slow down. These case managers and just people, a lot of people in the medical field too, it's just, okay. And check in with clients. Make sure you're checking in with them regularly. And I mean a real thorough check-in, not just, hey, how are you? Because most people are going to say good, because that is just the script that society has given folks subconsciously and consciously. So check in with clients, a real heart-to-heart check-in, seeing how they're doing, asking, what's their experience, checking in about goals that they said. If they said that they wanted to start going to Pilates, how was Pilates? And really checking in, not just to say that you checked in, but you should want to get to know your clients and build rapport. That helps them to have a better experience in treatment, that the case manager is not this person who and makes them sign paperwork. The case manager is actually an important part of the whole treatment experience, and a case manager could actually ruin their experience. Okay, principle number 10, ethics. So there are ethics of being a behavioral health provider in general, but there are some specific ethics that are not talked about when it comes to case managers and other behavioral health providers that I want to highlight. So number 1, clients' needs come first. I'll just, leave that there because I already spoke about this, but you're employed. The only reason you have a job is because they need treatment. And you need to remember that. I understand you need to pay your bills. I understand whatever of why you need a job, why you're working there, but their needs come first. And you need to remember that. You need to remember that you are there for them. Okay, communicating when your caseload is too much. Okay, if your facility does not respect when you say your caseload is too much and you ask for help, you need to create an exit plan to no longer work there. And don't fear this unnecessary fear. Don't entertain this unnecessary fear of, I'm going to be letting clients down. So always try your best to make the smoothest transition possible. And I know that sometimes is not possible. Trust me, I know. And just try to make the smoothest transition possible. But the minute you realize that your facility is not respecting you and they're not respecting the clients by making your caseload too much, understand that that's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse, and that's an unethical provider. To slam people with a ridiculous caseload and not provide any support is unethical, and they just care about money, and which is a lot of facilities. But at least the people who work on the ground actually care about the treatment. But if they don't even care about how the treatment, the services that you're delivering to the client and how that affects your interactions with them and the client's experience in treatment, understand that that's not ever going to get better. It's not going to get better, and it's so important for you to practice what you preach and practice self-care and to not work yourself to burnout and mental breakdowns. Like, why are you gonna have a breakdown when you're trying to help other people recover? Like, that's crazy. And so I've actually been lucky in this case. There's been some moments where I had to self-advocate, but I got lucky with this because I've worked in, especially the past few years, a place that was mostly well staffed most of the time, and that's something I recognized immediately when I got there. But I talked to people who work other places and just hear so many horror stories, and so I got kind of lucky with this, although there were moments I had to self-advocate. But I actually, my most recent employment was asking for more clients. Like, the supervisor was asking, can you handle more? And I'm like, I want more. I love working with clients, and yeah, I love this stuff. All right, so that's the end of this masterclass of the 10 principles of case management. When you know better, do better. Okay, I need you to raise your standard. When you raise your standard as a professional, when you raise your standard as a provider, when you raise your standard as someone who is helping people in their lowest point, you gain respect for yourself, and then also your clients gain respect for you, because it's not just that they appreciate you, but they also just gain respect for you because they know that you're about your business. So it's very important. The patient comes first. They come first. And please don't be thrown off by me switching off patient and client, using those terms interchangeably. Depending on where you work, it's called something different, so they refer different, but obviously the same thing. So this presentation, of course, is brought to you by seedsofgenesis.com. I do have a special offer for you. So if you go to either my LinkedIn profile or even if you email me, I do offer professional advice meetings. And so the best way is to go to my LinkedIn profile, go to my calendar link, find my calendar link. And if you can't find it, email me and I'll send it to you. And then as you're signing up for a calendar link, if you put in this special code, I will give you 50% off your first professional meeting, or advice meeting. So you don't have to have another one, but if you need professional advice, the code will be when you know better, do better, exactly spelled like it is in this screen. I mean a U instead of YOU. When you're signing up for the calendar link, or booking a session on the calendar, when you are typing in what the meeting is about, type in what the meeting is about, and then also add when you know better, do better, and I'll give you 50% off the price, which you can find when you get the calendar link. So I'll actually link it in the description of this video. Also, you can email me if you can't find it, and it's also in my LinkedIn featured section. Thank you so much. And again, the patient comes first, and I want you to do better. I want you to take all these principles and just do better. All right, peace out.